The Grenlec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
These are the 2024 Grenlec Debates. I am your host and former Grenlec debater, Ambrosia Charles. Welcome. We're in the second round of competition, the round of 16. The theme for this round is energy policy and economics. The areas of focus are energy policies, economic impact and subsidies, and taxes. Please note that although the students are given the topics and themes to research prior to the match, these debates are impromptu. The students develop their arguments today. They've selected their motions. They have been given 30 minutes to prepare their presentations without assistance from their teachers, and they're ready to debate. Let's get to it. This match is between Grenville Secondary School and Westerhall Secondary School. The motion is, be it resolved that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. For the proposition, Westerhall Secondary School. For the opposition, Grenville Secondary School.
Esteemed judges, audience, my fellow opponents, good morning. Today, we have the honor to debate the moot, be it resolved that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should finance renewable energy projects to developing nations. My team and I stand in full agreement with this moot. My team will present a key argument to support our stance. As first speaker, I will define key terms in the moot and state 1 point to support our stance. Our second speaker will give points to further solidify our case. Lastly, our rebuttalist will summarize our case and refute our opponent's claims. According to the Oxford Dictionary, stimulate can be defined as to rouse to activity or heightened actions. Economic growth can also be defined as the increasing of the development, production, and management of material wealth. From the Oxford Dictionary, renewable energy can be defined as, and I quote, a source of energy that is not depleted when used. Developing nations, a large group of people sharing the same culture or language that is in the process of becoming more advanced. We all know one of Grenada's highest source of income is tourism. If the Caribbean gets finance for renewable energy projects, tourism will become higher. It can boost the agricultural example. For example, Grenada, it can boost cocoa, nutmeg, spices. Grenada is known as the Isle of Spice. Why wouldn't we want to improve this? If our tourism sector is not helped, our fishermen can be highly affected. The fishes can suffer, which can cause our fishermen to lose revenue. Why would we want this? When mining for fossil fuels, you can cause deforestation to the agriculture, which can cause droughts. According to the United Nations, fossil fuels are by far the largest contributor to global climate change, accounting for over 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions and nearly 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions. They also went on to say, to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, emissions need to be reduced by almost half by 2030 and net worth zero by 2050. Why would we want to cause more climate change? Judges, this point is just the tip of the iceberg that is yet to come. My second speaker will now enlighten you on why we believe that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. I thank you.
Honorable judges, chairperson, worthy opponents, most accurate timekeepers, audience, all a pleasant good morning. Be it resolved that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should finance finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. My team and I firmly oppose the motion. As first speaker, I will define key terms in the moot and elaborate on 2 solid points. Our second speaker will further continue to convince you as to why we believe that to stimulate economic growth in developed countries should not finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. Speaking on destabilization, reliability, and effects on taxpayers. Our question and answer personnel will seek clarification of the claims made by our opponents. Our rebuttal speaker will respectfully refute claims made by our opposition. According to Oxford Languages, stimulate, to encourage something to develop. Economic impact. This deals with the financial standing of a country's energy, the source that we use to generate power and finance, the use or management of money. This brings me to my first point. Creating and implementing energy policies can involve substantial upfront costs, which may strain a developing country like Grenada's limited financial resources. This investment could further divert funds away from the essential services such as healthcare and education, which are crucial for long-term economic growth. According to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, Grenada spends over 10% of its GDP on energy inputs, highlighting the economic vulnerability posed by its dependence on fossil fuels. Second, take for example a developing country like Grenada, where the opponents. Grenada's capacity to develop and implement comprehensive energy policies may be limited due to its lack of technical expertise and resources. Without adequate knowledge, the policies designed may not be effective, leading to wasted resources and a lack of tangible economic growth. Renewable energy sources do not get as much incentives also. This means high carbon taxes can lead to job loss in fossil fuel industries and drive up costs for consumers. Worthy opponents, are you still not convinced? I rest my case.
Good morning to all. As the second speaker, I will now further expound on why me and my team firmly agree with the moot. Economic growth. If our countries use renewable energy, it can develop our nations as the renewable energy sector creates jobs in manufacturing, installation, maintenance, and research. This stimulates economies and fosters innovation. Renewable energy, reducing reliance on fossil fuels, decreases air pollution, which will, and I repeat, will improve public health by lowering the incidence of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. Which brings me to my next point, reduced energy costs. While initial investment costs are generally lower, over time, the cost of living and the cost of energy from renewable sources can become extraordinarily cheaper than fossil fuels. This helps our government to spend even less money on importation, which is going to help stimulate our economic growth. For example, our past Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, tried to dig for oil, and this caused a huge loss in our economy, as there was little to no oil. Imagine spending a wide amount of money to get digging tools, and we got so little that we couldn't use it. Why spend the money? What a waste. This is why our countries should finance renewable energy projects, as it is clearly more reliable and easily sourced. If we don't finance into these projects, agriculture will suffer due to the lack of water and the heat, so our economy will suffer due to the lack of agriculture. I thank you.
Standing on protocol already established by my first speaker, a pleasant good morning to all. My team and I firmly believe that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should not finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. My first point, policies which go against fossil fuels can destabilize our economy because over 80% of global energy consumption, African Oil Gas Report.com, is fueled by fossil fuels. This can make energy more expensive to afford. Take, for example, the importation of these renewables. It is very expensive. And it is also expensive to install them also to nuclear families, which it also costs like 5,000 to 15,000 also. My second point, renewable energy sources are not always reliable. Solar and wind also. This can lead to the grid instability, which can increase energy prices and threaten economic growth, which means that most renewable energy depends on certain weather patterns for the harnessing of energy. Examples are solar, photovoltaic, or wind energy, which are harnessed via the sun and blue wind. Without these, the blowing, harnessing of energy will not be possible, which means that we will need to rely on fossil fuels, which are expensive to import, which will not stimulate economic growth. My third point, although some subsidies exist on renewable energy, this will come at a cost of the taxpayers' pocket, and electricity prices will rise. This means that jobs will be lost due to switching to renewables, and it will help in economic impact. Take, for example, those persons who are risking their lives out there in the oceans to gather oil. What will happen to them if now they have to switch to renewable energy? That's why my team and I firmly agree with the motion. I thank you.
Worthy opponent, when the mood says that developed countries should finance renewable projects in developing countries, are they directly paying for the importation of materials and the construction of the projects?
Yes.
But how is that help with economic?
The Paris Agreement.
Moving on.
In what?
In what way does the developed country provide finance for the renewable projects, or in what form?
Can you repeat, please?
In what way does the developed countries provide the finance for the renewable projects, or in what form? Cash or checks?
Checks.
Do you have any proof?
Do you have any proof for that statement?
No, I don't.
How will the government secure the financing for these projects when importing these renewables are very expensive?
Can you repeat the question?
How will the government secure the financing for these projects when importing these renewables are expensive?
The Paris Agreement.
Okay, go on.
How does the boosting of tourism affect the spices that Grenada produces, as stated by your first speaker?
Repeat the question?
How does the boosting of tourism affect the spices that Grenada produces, as stated by your first speaker?
I believe our first speaker would have stated that tourism is one of our economy's greatest aspects. It helps us to produce money.
Yes, but she also stated that with the improvement of tourism, then we would be able to improve Grenada's spices. We are known for the spices that we produce.
My fellow opponents, do you know what is the Paris Agreement?
Yes, the Paris Agreement is an agreement that was signed, assigned for the national NDCs or national contribution to outline objectives for member countries.
My worthy opponents, how does countries going against the use of fossil fuels heighten the cost of energy?
Repeat the question, please.
How does countries going against the use of fossil fuels heighten the cost of energy?
The importation.
Do you think that the wind doesn't always blow?
Yes. Weather patterns are something that are unpredictable. Due to our location in the Caribbean, where we get the sunlight almost constantly, the heat evaporates water, which cause tropical depressions.
Moving on, isn't the sun always shining?
No. In terms of, no.
Okay, can we move on?
Yes, you can.
Do you know how photovoltaic cells work? Can we move on?
Yes.
Isn't there jobs in renewable energy?
Yes, there are, but what we are saying is the switch to renewable energy, if it is too fast, then
people can also lose their jobs.
People can lose their jobs at a higher rate than jobs can be provided.
As fossil fuels run out, wouldn't it be more expensive to source it?
It will also be expensive for the low-income families. How will they be able to afford the installation of the renewables?
Honorable Chair, as your rebuttal speaker, I will brilliantly refute claims made by my worthy opponents on the moot. Be it resolved that to stimulate economic growth, developed countries should finance renewable energy projects in developing nations. Just to add on, my team and I firmly oppose the moot. Your first speaker stated that digging fossil fuels causes deforestation. However, how does the taking of fossil fuels cause deforestation when most fossil fuels are found under the water where the conditions are right for their formation? Your question and answer speakers said things that were never mentioned with our or your speakers. Your second speaker stated that renewable energy boosts our economy. However, switching to renewables is so expensive. Worthy opponents, our research from credible sources states that installing one solar panel, which is the most popular renewable used in Grenada, costs $5,000 to $15,000. For only one, can the government, along with the agreement, put in place? Worthy opponents, not even Grenlec has found a way to dispose of the waste matters from the panels. I've said enough.
Good morning to all. My fellow opponents, your first speaker stated that financing renewable energy will strain the economy. But I have the question, wouldn't the Paris Agreement pay back any strains made when purchasing any renewable energy devices? Also, your first speaker also stated that it will be a strain. But I have a question. Wouldn't the government find other ways to fund other sectors that will need the money? It's not only the energy sector that would supply money for all the sectors. Your second speaker also stated that it's expensive for renewable energy. But my worthy opponents, isn't it expensive to find the oil, to extract it, and also to import it? My opponents are always speaking about importing renewable energy, but don't you have to import fossil fuels? They also stated that renewable energies does not create jobs. That is just false, my judges. Renewable energy will cause more jobs for everybody. The researchers, the people who have to make it, the people that have to maintain these renewable energy devices. Your second speaker only talked about wind and solar energy. What about hydro? What about geothermal? What about the other types of renewable energy? They have failed to tell us how these are not effective. And the cost of fossil fuels will increase as time goes on, which will mean we will have to pay more, which will not help with the development of our economy. This is why we agree that this is why we agreed the moot. I thank you.
Today's match winner is Westerhall Secondary School. Congratulations. We say hats off to all participants. We thank you, our viewing audience, for joining us, and we invite you to tune in again for a complete coverage of the next match in the Round of 16 series.
The Grenlec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
The Grenlec Debates will be broadcast on MTV Monday and Thursday at 9 p.m. and on Saturday at 6 p.m. and on GBN TV Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. and on Sunday at 4 p.m.
Tune in